The week before my wedding wasn't just busy, it felt like a movie montage. A whirlwind of appointments, decisions, and details flashing before my eyes. Florist visits, filled with discussions of peonies versus roses, the perfect shade of blush, and whether or not to include that one sprig of baby's breath. Bridal magazines, their glossy pages promising a fairy tale, yet somehow adding to the pressure. Endless lists, guest lists, seating charts, vendor confirmations, emergency contact lists, and a never-ending stream of to-dos. My dress, a cloud of ivory tulle, hung on my door, a constant reminder of the day that was rapidly approaching, a fairy tale I desperately wanted to believe in, a symbol of the perfect future I was supposed to be stepping into. Beneath the flurry of activity, a tremor of unease grew stronger each night, a subtle vibration that threatened to shatter the carefully constructed facade. My mother orchestrated details with military precision, ensuring every napkin was perfectly folded and every centerpiece flawlessly arranged. My bridesmaids buzzed with excitement, their enthusiasm a stark contrast to the growing anxiety within me. And the venue was perfect, a picturesque setting that seemed straight out of a magazine. I played the ecstatic bride-to-be, a role I was starting to feel increasingly disconnected from, approving swatches and smiling for everyone, all the while feeling like I was acting in a play. But late at night, the tremor returned, louder each time, a persistent drumbeat of doubt echoing in the silence. At my final dress fitting, I saw a bride in the mirror, a vision of white lace in carefully constructed perfection, her eyes a little lost, searching for something I couldn't quite define. Was it just cold feet? I told myself it was normal, that every bride felt this way before the big day. The rehearsal dinner was filled with laughter, a cacophony of well wishes, and excited chatter, and toasts, each one a reminder of the commitment I was about to make. My fiancé, charming as ever, effortlessly working the room and making everyone feel at ease. He squeezed my hand, but his touch felt distant, a fleeting connection in a sea of faces. Or maybe it was me, lost in my own thoughts and anxieties. Our families mingled, expectations heavy in the air, a silent pressure to uphold tradition and create the perfect union. I smiled until my cheeks ached, a practiced expression that masked the turmoil within, trying to silence the insistent whisper that something was wrong, that this wasn't the right path for me. I just had to get through one more day, one more hurdle in this marathon of wedding preparations. The perfect wedding was set, every detail meticulously planned, but my doubts refused to be ignored, growing louder with each passing hour. I wondered if anyone else could see the cracks beneath the surface, the subtle signs of my inner turmoil. I kept telling myself, just one more day, just a few more hours until it was all over. Just one more smile, one more act to play, one more moment to pretend everything was all right. But the tremor was now impossible to ignore, a full-blown earthquake threatening to erupt and shatter everything I thought I knew. It all seems like a lifetime ago now, a faded photograph in my memory, but I remember it vividly, the night we met. It was at a crowded party, the kind where you can barely hear yourself think. We were introduced by a friend of a friend, a casual encounter that would unknowingly change the course of my life. I remember thinking he was charming, even from across the crowded room. Mark was handsome, charming, with a smile that could light up a room. He had this way of making you feel instantly comfortable, like you'd known him forever. And he made me feel like the only person in the room, like my thoughts and feelings were the most important thing in the world to him. It was intoxicating. He pursued me with intensity, a whirlwind of attention and affection that swept me off my feet. There were flowers at my office, a beautiful bouquet arriving unexpectedly, brightening my workday. Elaborate dates, candlelit dinners at fancy restaurants, each one more romantic than the last. He really knew how to create a fairy tale, and almost immediately there was talk of a future together, a shared vision of what our lives could be. It felt so right at the time. The speed of it all should have been a warning, a flashing red light screaming at me to slow down and think. But it felt like destiny, like we were meant to be together. Two souls colliding at the perfect moment in time. He mirrored my dreams perfectly, every aspiration, every hope, every desire I had for the future. A house, kids, a life together, a picture-perfect family. It was everything I had ever wanted. I'd been single for a while, navigating the treacherous waters of the dating world, tired of disappointment, of endless first dates that led nowhere, of feeling like I was destined to be alone. And Mark felt like the answer, the solution to all my romantic woes, the missing piece I'd been searching for. 6 months in, he proposed. A whirlwind romance culminating in the ultimate commitment. Grand gesture, sunset, the perfect backdrop for a life-altering question. Diamond ring, sparkling under the setting sun, a symbol of forever. My friends were thrilled, ecstatic that I had finally found the one. My parents were completely won over by his devotion, charmed by his attentiveness and apparent sincerity. I said yes without hesitation, without a second thought, swept up in the dream, blinded by the fairy tale, convinced that this was it. Engagement was a blur of celebration and planning, a whirlwind of excitement and anticipation, apartment hunting, searching for the perfect place to start our lives together, furniture shopping, carefully selecting each piece to create a home filled with love and laughter, venues, touring countless locations, searching for the perfect place to say I do. Mark agreed with all my choices, always supportive, always encouraging. He made me feel like a queen, like I deserved the very best. If I voiced concern about the pace, if I dared to question whether we were moving too fast, he'd just smile that charming smile and say, "When you know," dismissing my worries with a simple phrase. I wanted to believe him desperately. I wanted this to be my happy ending, my fairy tale come true. The whirlwind felt magical, intoxicating, like I was living in a dream. But I never stopped to question if it was real, if the foundation of our relationship was built on something solid. I was desperate to believe this was it, my one true love, my forever, and that desperation, that blinding hope, is what led me down this path. The first red flag appeared when Mark avoided meeting my extended family, always with a plausible excuse. He was charming with my parents, but allergic to the wider circle. I brushed it off. He was busy, stressed. Then came the small lies, working late but seen at a bar, errands never run. When I questioned him, he'd get defensive or turn it around on me. I started doubting my own memory. Classic gaslighting, though I didn't see it then. He subtly undermined my confidence, always outshining my achievements or correcting my opinions. It wasn't overt cruelty, just a slow erosion of self. I second-guessed everything, wondering if I was too sensitive. Financially, things were murky. Big talk about investments, but vague about expenses. I covered more and more, telling myself it was temporary. The man I thought was solid was built on shaky ground. The whispers of doubt grew louder. I tried to ignore them, but they wouldn't go away. The cracks were no longer invisible. The pressure to go through with the wedding was immense. Society, family, money, and fear of loneliness. My mother's dress, non-refundable deposits, gifts piling up, symbols of a future I wasn't sure I wanted. I was in my 30s, haunted by the ticking clock and fear of starting over. Outwardly, I played the happy bride. Inwardly, I was a mess of anxiety. Moments of clarity came at night, but morning brought the relentless wedding machine. Disappointing everyone felt unbearable, so I kept going. I told myself all couples had doubts, that things would work out after marriage, but deep down, I knew I was living a dangerous fantasy. The truth was becoming impossible to avoid. The morning of the wedding, I woke in the bridal suite, dread knotting my stomach. This wasn't nerves, it was something deeper. I looked at my dress, now a costume for a role I couldn't play. The stylist arrived, transforming me into a bride as I sat numb. My maid of honor, Sarah, saw my panic. "Are you okay?" she whispered. I lied, "Just jitters." The clock raced toward disaster, each tick a countdown. The photographer arrived. I forced smiles, panic rising. Was this really the point of no return? The words, "It's not too late," echoed in my mind, growing louder. I felt trapped, unable to breathe. 5 hours before the ceremony, something snapped, or finally clicked. The fear of living a lie outweighed the fear of disappointing everyone. I stood up, legs shaking. "I can't do this," I whispered. Sarah stared, wide-eyed. "I can't marry him." The decision was made. There was no turning back. The words hung in the air, thick and heavy, like a storm cloud about to burst. They lingered, unspoken but deafening, filling the room with an unbearable tension. Heavy, irreversible, a decision made, a path chosen, with no turning back. The weight of it pressed down, a tangible burden. Sarah didn't try to change my mind, didn't offer platitudes or empty reassurances. She understood somehow the depth of my conviction. She just asked, "What do you need me to do?" A simple question, but one that spoke volumes, a lifeline thrown in a sea of uncertainty. Relief nearly buckled my knees. The sheer gratitude I felt for her unwavering support threatened to overwhelm me. I wasn't alone. That realization was a balm to my soul, a source of strength in the face of what was to come. The first call was to my parents. My hands trembled as I dialed, knowing the pain I was about to inflict. Telling them was agony, each word a shard of glass. I could hear the shock in their voices, the disbelief, but beneath the shock, there was love. A deep, abiding love that transcended disappointment and confusion. My father simply asked, "Are you sure?" His voice was calm, measured, betraying none of the turmoil I knew he must be feeling. When I said yes, he said, "Then it's right." That simple statement was all the validation I needed. Calling Mark was next. A wave of nausea washed over me as I pressed the call button. His reaction was cold, angry, defensive, exactly what I expected, and yet still jarring. No heartbreak, just wounded pride. It was all about him, his image, his plans. That reaction solidified my decision. Any lingering doubts I might have harbored vanished in that instant. The logistical nightmare began, a whirlwind of cancellations and explanations. Sarah and my bridesmaids called vendors, caterers, florists, the venue, a cascade of phone calls, guests, everyone. Each conversation a delicate dance of apologies and explanations. Some people were understanding, offering words of comfort and support. Others confused or annoyed, their disappointment palpable. I felt guilt for the chaos, for the disruption I was causing in so many lives, but it was fleeting. Freedom quickly overshadowed it. The weight that had been pressing down on me for so long began to lift. As the hours passed, a strange calm settled over me, a sense of peace I hadn't felt in years. I wiped off the makeup, washing away the facade I had been wearing for so long. Changed into my own clothes that felt like me, comfortable and familiar. Left the wedding dress hanging, a silent testament to a life not lived. There was sadness, the death of a dream, the loss of a future I had once envisioned. But more than that, a liberating lightness, the feeling of shedding a heavy skin. I had chosen myself. Finally, unequivocally, I had chosen myself. I listened to my inner voice, the voice I had silenced for so long, the voice that knew what was truly right for me. For the first time in a long time, I was truly breathing, filling my lungs with the air of freedom and possibility. The world didn't end. It opened up, revealing a landscape of endless possibilities. I realized I was free, truly and completely free to be myself, to live my life on my own terms. And that was everything. That was all that mattered. The days after the non-wedding were a blur of takeout and soul-searching. I expected heartbreak, but mostly felt vindicated. My gut had been right. Then a week later, the truth crashed in. Mark's wife contacted my sister. Yes, wife, married for 3 years, living an hour away. Emily, as she called herself, brought photos, documents, and a story that unraveled everything. Mark had been living a double life, 2 fiancés, 2 families, 2 sets of lies. The business he bragged about, actually run by Emily. His financial troubles, likely funding his charade with me, avoiding my extended family. He couldn't risk being recognized. The man I thought I'd married didn't exist. He was a fiction, a con artist of the heart. The shock was seismic, but also affirming. My doubts weren't irrational. My intuition had been right all along. I hadn't been crazy. The decision to cancel the wedding now felt like a miraculous escape. I was grateful for the voice that saved me. I dodged a nightmare. Mark's double life was a brutal blow, but also a gift. It cauterized the wound. No more what-ifs or regrets. That man was never real. Anger burned away confusion and self-doubt, propelling me forward. Healing wasn't easy. Trust takes time to rebuild. I went to therapy, talked through the betrayal, learned to spot red flags. I reconnected with friends, threw myself into work, rediscovered old joys. I started to remember who I was before Mark. The most important lesson, honor my inner voice. My intuition was my ally, not my enemy. I vowed never to silence it again. The freedom I felt was profound. Not just from Mark, but from expectations and pressure. The canceled wedding cleared a path for a life that was truly mine. I was finally becoming myself. If my story offers anything, it's this. Trust your gut. That inner voice, even when inconvenient, is usually right. We're conditioned to ignore it, but sometimes making waves is the only way to save yourself. The pain of an honest choice is better than living a lie. My experience was extreme, but intuition speaks in every situation. Tune in, honor your truth, and act on it. Listen to the whispers before they become screams. Your life is speaking to you. Listen. Walking away from that altar was terrifying, but it led to a far more authentic beginning. You deserve that freedom too.